We'd like to kind of sit down with you and just chat about the topic of being an intern here at Elevatus. I have here Doug as well. Doug and I are really excited to talk about this subject with you and explain how it's so important to have interns in the architectural industry.
Yeah, and we wanted to just really improve that, program within our office just to make that a better learning experience, but also to give you skills and things that will come back to us or wherever you're at working. So
it's amazing what interns here have the abilities to, gain access to the state-of-the-art technology. We have so many talented people here with lots of experience and all different projects and visits interns can have. I think it's just a full cycle of experience that you can gain here. And we've had interns here for over a year, or in some
about a year,
in some
6 months to a year,
and some seasonal. And but it's great to have just all different types of experience come through our doors with regards to interns. But how about let's kind of talk about the idea of what is it that you feel is important for an intern to be equipped with for an architecture firm like Elevatus?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that students or interns can get out of an internship that you would never get at school. Working with a team is not something you get a lot of experience at in studio. Working with clients, that's another thing that you have to work in the real field to understand and gain access to. Some of the technology, I've worked on software here that I've never experienced at school, and I think internships really open the door for a lot more knowledge that school just doesn't provide and doesn't have the ability to provide because it isn't necessarily the real world quite yet.
Right. I was curious too because you did an internship before this one.
Yes.
So I'm curious, just your experience at the two different firms, not to compare them for competitive reasons, but what every firm's a little bit different with what they do, how they do it, specialties and things like that. So just curious, kind of your take on the two different internships that you've done.
Yeah, definitely. The two firms that I've interned at so far are quite different, and I was kind of surprised going in to see that. I kind of thought everybody would operate the same way. My first internship was at a bit of a larger firm, so I feel like this current internship, the team's a bit closer. The projects are a little bit more intimate, and also the projects are completely different programmatically. We do a lot more prisons here, which is something that I'd never gotten the experience to do prior to this. We did a lot more workplace and financial credit unions and stuff like that at my first internship. So the programs here are very different. It's very fascinating, and the team is very passionate about what they do. So that's really cool to watch.
Yeah. So when you started with our other intern, Dylan, we put you on a project right off the bat. It was a high school. It was looking at doing some expansions, some master planning. Tell us about that experience of doing that and your thoughts on it.
Well, actually, with that project, that was the first time I'd ever worked with another intern on a project. So that was really fun because we got to kind of bounce off each other and use our knowledge. And it was sort of like working in studio because you work together to, achieve a goal. And I got to work on a software that I hadn't used yet. It was the first time I'd ever opened it. So I kind of used that project to learn that software.
Learn as you go.
Yeah. So it was really fun because I'd never used it before, and that gave me not only a reason to open it, but time to learn it and get better at it and kind of play around in it, which was really cool.
We've talked about this subject too, about the topic of going from the classroom to the outside experiential world of architecture. What can you say, how you're able to apply the classroom to your experiential properties, and how you've learned it, as far as in the curriculums, now you're applying it to real world projects. What can you say for someone who's trying to prepare themselves in the classroom to go into the real world? What type of tips would you give to them?
My first tip is that in studio or in school, you have all of the control over what you want your project to look like. And I think it's important to realize that when you do get out in the real world, it isn't entirely up to you. And you do have to take tips from the clients and, make sure you're meeting their needs and not just what you want it to look like, what you want it to do. It's very important that your relationship with a client is strong and that they trust you to, design what they're looking for. And that's not something that you have to worry about in school. Another thing is the client relationship. That's very important. That's not something that you learn really in school. You learn some of the business behind how the firm works, but you don't necessarily talk about, the relationship with the client. And I've realized through both internships that is almost the most important part of being in this profession, because you are there for them. And at school, you're there for yourself. So just taking all of the things that you have learned at school and trying to find, a way to apply those to meet the needs of the client is very important.
So Grace, so coming into the doors of Elevatus, what were your expectations and what are now some of the realities that you've discovered?
I think every intern thinks that they're going to walk in and have to make copies and get coffee, and that isn't what it is at all. It's so much better because you get to have a hand in everything, and you might not see a project all the way through, but to see a project finished and you're like, yeah, I touched that, or I had some influence on that, or I watched the team get to this point is a really awesome experience, because at school it's all you. So here you get to be a part of a team, and I think working with the firm, you make a lot of friends and you get a lot of knowledge from just the people you're working with, your coworkers. I think it's super important to get to know the people you're working with, because everybody has a different story and that can kind of impact your story. Learning other people's experiences and influences really has an impact on you. And that's one of the main things I didn't think I would get. I didn't think my coworkers would make an impact on me, and they absolutely have. And, they've helped me figure out what I want to do in the future and where I want to go with things. And
internship is key.
It's
absolutely
through an
internship,
key.
It's one thing to just have them, as far as interns speaking, just work on project by project by project, but it's the mechanics in between there that probably are the most important. It's the people, the relationships you develop, and not only from the beginning of your internship but till the end.
Right.
It's the furthering the relationship, down the road, the beyond the referrals, and, those things. I think it's the format now we're developing, not only with the client, in a relationship, but we're also developing it with our colleagues and growing through the fields of architecture. And I think that's what's really incredible about internships, is that it's not just a beginning and end. It's a beginning of a relationship with someone or many people in the format of a mentoring experience.
Exactly. And you brought up the client. That's another expectation I didn't have. You get a lot of experience working with clients, which is something I didn't think I was going to get. They really do trust you to, take your designs and explain them to the client. And that's a really awesome, I keep saying that's an awesome.
That's great.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
It is. I mean, if it's awesome, say it,
It's an awesome experience.
Yeah. Awesome is a possum.
Yeah. Working with clients one-on-one is something you don't think you're going to get because you are just an intern, but they really do trust you and give you that responsibility.
That autonomy is huge with the internship, because it really feels you have some empowerment and some ways that you can create, decisions.
Perfect.
Well, we're excited to have you here and all the different projects we've worked on together. It's been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So if you were standing in front of a group of interns at Ball State or wherever that are getting ready to go into their first internship, what advice would you give them?
First and foremost, I would say to ask questions. And I know that's something that we hear a lot, but it's so true. If you don't know, ask. Ask your coworkers, ask your bosses, not only just like how to do things, but about themselves, how they got here, what made them want to do architecture, because it inspires you to keep going and get further into the profession. But also, I think what's my second piece of advice? My second piece of advice is to try things that scare you, because in school you do things to get a good grade. And I think an internship is the best time to explore what you can do, because you do have people around you that want to see you grow and do well. and now's the time to do it. So try things that you're scared to do, try things you might not know how to do, ask questions, get advice, and yeah.
Yeah, that's what my wife always said is do something scary every day.
Yeah.
When I start doing that, that's the growth and improvement, and you get confident with things.
Yeah.
But I can say you've made a big dent in our firm just being here with this internship. Heard a lot of people compliment you, and we've really enjoyed having you here.
Well, thank you so much. It's been
such a
absolutely
help.
great to be here. I love it here.